Hi. Welcome to So Friday. This is what happens when the person behind the camera just decides to start the show without telling me.
It's okay, you can...
We were ironing out our ironing plans. Look at that. Okay. Anyway, welcome to So Friday. I'm Elizabeth, and today we are going to be working on the Churn Dash quilt featuring Color Dash, which is a new collection designed by Heather Jones. It's a Kona coordinated group. It has 18 fabrics, 4 different designs, and 3 color stories: cerise, curry, and black. And today we are going to be working with curry. So for starters, you're going to need the free pattern. It's available on the Robert Kaufman website and under patterns, or you can get there with the link in this little So Friday post. For the sake of the video, we've gone ahead and we've pre-cut our fabrics. And let me just show you real quick what it is that we're making, because it's Churn Dash block, but just to give you like a scale idea, it's a really big Churn Dash block. And so what that means is that in just 16 seams, you get this really, really large block, and there's only 4 of them in the quilt size, so you can really create this very quickly. So what you're going to need, first of all, you're going to need your rotary cutter. You're going to need an erasable pen. I'm using a friction pen that's heat erasable. You need your thread scissors, and I have my nice big Omni Grip ruler here. So step 1, I like to work on the half square triangles first. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 11-inch squares of my print and my background, and just on the back of each of my print fabrics, I'm going to draw a line from point to point using my ruler to make sure that I'm getting that point accurate. And we really love this quilt, but if you're interested in seeing other quilts using Color Dash, you can see them all on the website. This collection is shipping to your favorite shops now, and there are many, many different quilts, including 3 different free projects, and this is one of them. You can also see the group, all the different designs on the website, and you'll notice that we have a lot of really exciting pre-cut options, including a back quarter bundle, 10 squares, a roll-up, charms, and so this one just needs yardage, but you can also check out all the fat quarter friendly projects and other projects. So after you've drawn the line from point to point, you're going to just lay your fabric, your 11-inch square, on top of the background 11-inch square, making sure that it's nice and exactly on top of it. And then I'm just going to use a few pins to keep it in place. At this point, we're using the 2 at a time method for making our half square triangles, but if you have a different favorite method for using it, feel free to use that method. I'm pinning because it's really important to have an accurate a 1/4-inch seam on either side of your red line, and so if I don't pin, I get a little bit of shifting, and that's always really frustrating because then your pieces aren't fitting together quite right. So if you have any neat tricks for making these 2 at a time, helps if I turn on my sewing machine, feel free to leave them for me. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the captions as well, or the comments, and we'll be answering them towards the end of the presentation. You're going to be using a 1/4-inch seam allowance, and once you have your 2 11-inch squares together, you're just going to go ahead and sew a 1/4 inch on either side of the line that you just drew. It's a pretty day today, or pretty day, it's a pretty day, it's a pretty busy day today here around Robert Kaufman. We are preparing for our quarterly release, which is happening next Friday. So we won't be doing a So Friday, but keep your eye out because we will have all kinds of exciting new fabrics to show you. I can just give you guys like a little bit of a hint. There may be new collections from like Elizabeth Hartman, and Carolyn Friedlander, and Karen Lewis, and Valerie Wells, and Heather Jones, and there's a lot of good new stuff coming out next Friday, so keep your eye out for our Instagram feed and our Facebook. All right, so now that I've sewn on either side, you can just see the stitching on either side of that red line. I'm going to use my ruler and line it up again from point to point, which should also be on that red line that you drew, and I'm just going to cut that in half. And now you'll see we have our half square triangles. Well, yes, it's very satisfying. Half square triangles. And I'm going to send these off to be pressed and then repeat that process again with the other side.
You're gonna send them off?
I'm going to send them off to be pressed. The gal who was going to help me press forgot that she was my pressing helper, and I just looked up and she went,
That's because I was feeding her chocolate and she got really distracted. Sorry, Rebecca.
I'm on camera, so I don't get any chocolate.
I would, but you're using light fabric.
Oh, you probably shouldn't mix. So what's your favorite candy to mix when you're sewing? Because I can't really do chocolate if the temperature fluctuates too much, like it's risky getting it on my fabric, but I do have a giant stash of jelly beans at my house that I keep near my fabric and my sewing machine. And yesterday I was actually realizing that it's not a good idea to also be pinning while you're eating your jelly beans, because I almost tried to put a pin in my mouth yesterday. Oh. It's like a true story.
What kind of jelly beans are your favorite?
I really like the cinnamon ones. And I think as I get older, like my flavor palette is changing, because I ate a licorice one the other day and it was like, man, this is a really good jelly bean.
Sarah likes Skittles or hot tamales. So I guess you guys are on the hot tamale trend. It's kind of the same thing.
That's a good one.
Like a cinnamon.
Also, yeah, like I feel like candy with a hard outer shell is good to eat while you're sewing, because then it doesn't really melt. Unless you live somewhere where it's like really hot, and then that gets all sticky. But
in case you didn't know, Elizabeth knows a lot about candy.
I do, and like how to eat candy while I'm also sewing is a really, like, combining my two great loves. There was an image going around Pinterest where they took like this part of their machine, you know, where it's like a little cubby, and they filled it with M&Ms or something. It's like that person knows what's going on. Okay, so we're going to just again cut right down the middle. Make sure that we're on our cutting mat here. And in case you're just joining us, we're working on the Churn Dash quilt featuring Color Dash. It's a free download on Robert Kaufman's website. Ariga, if you could just iron these guys. And so when we get them back from being pressed, they look so lovely. Nice half square triangles. And then we're just going to set these aside, and we're going to move on to the colored bars here. This is obviously not the color that we're working with, but it's one of the color options for this quilt. And it gives you the idea. So for this, I just like to chain piece, and if you are comfortable pinning, feel free to pin. I just kind of like to line it up and go for it. While we do have our quarterly release next week, we also have Quilt Market coming up in just a few weeks, and so we're all also getting ready to show you everything there. And I know all our designers are hard at work as well, sewing up new quilts and projects and exciting things to see. So the Robert Kaufman Instagram, Facebook feed is just like a happening place to be right now. I'm getting a little nervous that I'm going to run out of bobbin again, because I did that last week, but maybe I won't. I meant to refill it and then I forgot. At home, I use like a spool stand on the back, and so I sew with a cone, and then I use the second stand to fill a bunch of bobbins at once, and then I just put them there, and then when I need a new bobbin, I just like reach over and grab a bobbin.
Well, why didn't you do that today?
We don't have a spool stand, so I couldn't. Does anyone else pre-fill bobbins? Like, I feel like when I'm in the process of pre-filling my bobbins, like I might as well, or filling a bobbin, I might as well like fill 8 bobbins so that I don't run out again. But sometimes they fall on the ground and then I'm not sure where they are, and then, you know, this happens. It's just
Sorry. Elizabeth, you have any good jokes for us?
Oh, so I know so many knock knock jokes, because when you browse Land of Nod's website, they show you a knock knock joke for every single page that has like a cute item on it. So today I got knock knock.
Oh, who's there?
Fix your doorbell. That was my favorite.
You got a laugh out of John. There you go.
Maybe you can go ahead and press these.
When I was asking you about jokes earlier, you didn't give me any ones like that.
I gave you so many knock knock jokes. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh,
Okay, and now I need my ironing person to actually iron. They're all just like kind of like, oh,
It's really
milk
warm in this
chocolate.
room because we turn off the air
So
for the video.
we can start to lay this out, but until we get those middle pieces, we can't actually do anything. So at this point, we're just gonna lay out our little blocks, and you can kind of start to see the churn dash happening like on a very grand, large scale here. Oh man, fresh from the oven. They're all nice and warm. All right, and you can see here as we go that we have like a whole little giant churn dash thing happening. So this is really great because like if someone has a baby and you're like, oh man, I had to make them a baby quilt, you could make them just a single giant block. And I mean, babies are really little, it just like fit right in the middle, and that's basically a full baby quilt. So now we are going to piece these together in rows. So top 3, and then middle 3, the bottom 3, and then we'll do like some fancy pressing with locking seams, and it'll be really wonderful. So I like to line up my corners so that I know that I'm getting a 1/4 inch in from the end. That way when you piece, if you add borders or anything like that, you don't cut off the points of your churn dash. And at this point, again, if you feel more comfortable pinning, definitely feel free to pin. I just always try not to pin. And sometimes that means that I spend a lot of time with my seam ripper, and today
Okay, you're back.
I found my fancy seam ripper today, and I was really excited because I've been using this like still good but very tiny seam ripper, and so when I just like look at this, wouldn't you rather use this really lovely nice giant than like this little teeny seam ripper? I was very, very excited about it. I don't know, this is my favorite kind of seam ripper because it has this tip and the back that is kind of like rubbery, and so when you have to rip a seam, I'm sure everyone has experienced this, where like the little bits of the thread is still in there and then it's hard to like pick out. This is kind of like an eraser. You just like gently rub it on the seam that you just ripped out, and it just pulls all those little threads out, and it's my favorite. I spend a lot of time with my seam ripper. We're good friends. Okay, back on to the piecing. I can't remember any other good jokes. Maybe there was one like, let's see. There was one, like I feel like I kept running into ones with people's names of people that I worked with. So there was one like, knock knock, who's there? John. John who? John me outside, it's a really lovely day today. Just like, and we work with the Johns, so that kind of made me laugh. And then there was one with Frank, but I can't remember what it was. And then there was a Carl. We don't work with a Carl, I just remember that there was a name. And then there was an Annette, and I know an Annette, so that was fun. Anyway.
Sorry, Nicole's taking photos of you while you do this and posting them on the internet. So we were just laughing at her captions.
Oh.
Just let it happen.
She's got crazy eyes.
Sometimes they ask me to like look surprised, so I go, I make my eyes as big as I can make them.
It's terrifying.
It's really scary. It's my favorite thing to do. I find that for all the best crazy faces, it really takes practice and commitment. Like you have to go home and you just have to like stare in the mirror and go and like practice a lot. Like that was how I learned to make the super sad face where you go,
Oh gosh.
like it took a lot of practice. My brothers could just do it and I was like, what? So I practiced.
Oh. So as you can tell, we're all a bit fried and a little bit delirious. How long does this project take? I mean,
I would say that it takes probably like 25 to 35 minutes to pre-cut all your fabrics, like for the whole quilt, because it's not a lot of cutting and they're really big pieces, which is really nice. And then depending on how focused you are when you're sewing, I mean, it could probably be done in like an hour or two if you just are like, I'm just gonna sew this quilt. But if you're like, I think I'm gonna sew this quilt a little bit and then I'm gonna go watch an episode of Murder, She Wrote, and then I'm going to eat some jelly beans, and then I'm gonna think about eating ice cream, and then I'll walk the dog. Like, you could do all those things.
Still get it done in a day.
Yeah, well, yeah, you get it done in a day.
So this is a really good option for a quick quilt if you are short on time. What did you do?
Huh, it just isn't lining up quite right, so I just need to... Oh, so I was sewing maybe the wrong... No, I was sewing the right section together. Huh, I'm gonna rip that seam out and try that again, because that didn't go the way I wanted it to go.
So this happens.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Everyone that sews knows this happens. It wouldn't be a real Sew Friday if no one made any mistakes, or there wasn't that moment where you were like, what am I doing? Because maybe I didn't square up this block, and that sometimes can be a thing that happens, like if you don't square up your block. So I'm just gonna check. I have a handy dandy 10.5-inch ruler here, and that block is looking really square. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, it's a little bit. There's like 1/8 of an inch over here. And like over here. Sorry. Okay. It's much more square now. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but sometimes even just a little bit of an extra seam can kind of throw you off. So let's try that again. Let's see. Sure hope that works. Sometimes after I've had particularly bad success with a seam really not fitting right, then I try and pin. And if it's for me and no one else is going to know, then sometimes I'll pull my fabric a little bit too, which is really frowned upon. But no one knows.
Except we all know now.
It's okay. I feel like everyone's done it. It's kind of like how when you iron, you're not supposed to pull it all with your iron. You're just supposed to like politely set your iron on your fabric, and that's like not how I iron.
Is anyone doing anything fun this weekend? And have people listening to this tutorial?
I might go to Disneyland.
Yeah, I don't
That's
know
fun.
anything about your surprise by that.
I don't know, Disneyland, like, I was trying to think of the last time I went to Disneyland. I was just like really scratching my head, and then Nicole said, Elizabeth, we went on Monday. So, I guess I went on Monday. But we didn't technically go into Disneyland. We just went into California Adventure, and we rode Tower of Terror in the dark. It was really wonderful.
Your eyeballs just now. Terrifying.
You should have been there. Julia was so scared. It was really amazing.
So what are you doing right now?
I'm squaring this block up again because it's a good like generous 1/8 inch larger than it should be. And so that would throw off everything.
Would you recommend doing this before you start sewing?
You can't square up your blocks before you start sewing.
Before you start putting things together.
I mean, like, yeah, you can. It worked really well on the first blocks. I mean, sometimes it just, I don't know. Sometimes I'll square up, but I feel like if it's working for you without squaring up, then it's up to you, but sometimes you kind of need to. Like, if your block ends up being 1/4 inch larger because it's not squared up, then that would be problematic because it just wouldn't line up right. But if it's like about right and it's working, then I would just go for it. Especially on a big project like this. I feel like on a little project where it needs to be like technically very perfect, then I probably would. All right, so now we have our 3 pieces. Let me just get this out of here. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna give Ariga pieces to press, but what you're going to want to do is to press just in these middle sections. I like to press these ends so that this block, it's not pushing this in. I feel like it just adds extra pressure weird, so I press this way and this way, so they're pressed in. And then on this one, since it's no extra seam bulk, I press these out, and then I press these ones in again. And that way, when you put them together, they nest. So if you just want to press, whoa, look at that. I sewed that wrong.
I was like, is that?
See, this is what happens when you sew and talk. You don't get a churn dash design. You can press these ones. And I'm gonna play again with the seam ripper. It's just like kind of.
It's so Friday. Gosh, it's okay.
We could just call it like very modern or improv, or like we'd call it a mistake, and then we can undo it. Let's see. Does anyone have any preferred ways to seam rip? I just recently found out that you're technically supposed to put the little ball underneath and leave the sharp part on top, and that was going to keep it from tearing your fabric. And it kind of works. It's like how the seam ripper was actually designed to work, but I never did it that way. So that was fun to learn. So look, I'm already going back to doing it the other direction because I feel like it's faster. Okay, let's try that again. We need it to go this way. What you should take away from Sew Fridays is that it's okay to make mistakes. Just, you know, seam rip and start over again. It's not a bad deal.
Lynn is saying she uses an electric seamer.
Ooh, I don't know what that is, but it sounds really exciting. All right, look at that. It's like no one even knew that we messed up that first time. We're just gonna press that, and then we are going to take our sections and just piece them together. So at this point, I do like to use pins because it's a long seam like this, and I just don't want to mess up, and I want my points to end up nice and sharp in the middle. Yeah, I know, I could have pinned every time.
Allie commented that her preferred way to rip out seams is in a fit of rage.
That can work. So here what we're doing is we're just nesting our seams. So you see how they go two different directions. They just butt up next to each other really nicely, and that's where we pin. And that way, when you actually sew them together, they just stay all nice and lovely. And I'm lining up my corners again. I'm gonna leave this side on top because this side has more seams, and I wanna make sure that they're not going crazy directions. Like sometimes if you put that many seams on the bottom, you'll find like your feed dogs kind of pull one the other direction, and it opens a seam that you were trying to press to the side, or kind of tweaks it a little bit. And so one of those things that drives me a little crazy. And if it's on top, I can control where it's going, just kind of with a finger press. When you have things pinned, don't forget to take your pins out before you sew over them, because if you don't, especially if you're using the really fine pins, they'll bend like drink, and then
like what?
I already did it once. You can rewatch the video. But so then when you go to find a straight pin later, you'll have pins that are like, and it's not helpful, and then you have to buy a lot of new pins. I have a problem. I don't throw my pins away. I just keep putting them back in a pin cushion like, oh, I'll get rid of this later, and then I never do, and then I'm wondering where all my good pins are. I'm sure other people are right there with me.
For those listening, where are you listening from? We're always curious to kind of see places.
And we're from Los Angeles.
Yeah, we are from Los Angeles.
Okay, so I have these two pieces put together, and so what you'll see is that my seams here are just, they meet really nicely, and they're nice and crisp, and they're so pretty. Ooh, so nice. And then we're going to do it again with this piece. Okay. And again, just nesting our seams. I don't know what that is. And just using a pin to hold it in place there.
It's got a pretty broad range.
Thinking about hot tamales.
Are you thinking about hot tamales?
And I don't have any hot tamales, but you know, last year Nicole introduced me to this candy. It's like a gummy worm, except it's an egg, and it's in the shape of a jelly bean. And they're the most amazing candy ever.
Didn't I get you like a 20 million pack?
You did.
They were so. It was like a family size. It was probably like a whole school size box.
It was really good.
For Elizabeth.
They're really yummy, and
nice to meet you too.
Once you try them, there's no going back. You're gonna like look at all the different grocery stores until you find them. Stater Brothers has them. Vaughn's has them. I just bought some today.
I should.
I'm really excited.
I don't really understand how Facebook Live works, guys, so now I finally just realized I can like your comments, which is really exciting. And I do like all of them, so I am liking all of them.
And And this is just going a little slow because I want to make sure that my bottom fabric hasn't shifted over and that the seam is still accurate. So far, so good. But I don't know, last time I said that, I sewed a whole piece on backwards, so. Okay, looks like I ran out of bobbin.
Oh no.
Way back there. Okay. So we're gonna do that
knew
thing
this would happen.
where I did not. I had hoped. I was really
We
close.
knew.
It was really close. So now this is when Yael should ask lots of questions, and then I can answer them with all this time that I have while I'm winding my bobbin.
Okay. Well, we're getting lots of comments from people telling us where they're coming from, which is really exciting. We always like to kind of see where our community's at. Elizabeth, I'm trying to think of some good questions to ask you. If any of you guys have questions, just feel free to, you know, comment them. Elizabeth will have to answer them, is the requirement.
What?
Oh yeah, tell us more about Color Dash.
Color Dash is designed by Heather Jones, and it's based on sketches that she did. And so it has a really nice variety in the different designs, and I'll show you all of them in just a minute. But so there's one that's like a really, there's one that's a really thick dash, and it's just a really fun print to play with, and it kind of looks like this. And then there's this quick mark that kind of looks like you were like testing different markers and shades, and it's really lovely. And then there's a little doodle here that's like, and it's nice because they're different sizes, and you'll see that some of them have some different spacing, so it's not like a perfectly symmetrical dot. My bobbin is full now. I'm very excited.
Someone asked if we have any job openings.
I don't think we do right now, but we do keep them.
Bobbin
But keep an eye out because we do post them online and announce them on social media when we are hiring. So if you're local to Los Angeles, never hurts to keep an ear to the ground.
Pamela is just coming in with these really funny questions.
Let's
She's
hear
asking
'em.
why you torture her with all these great fabrics.
Oh, don't I know it.
What's your favorite machine to piece with, I'm guessing?
I sew actually on this machine at home. It's a Janome 8900, and I actually got it on sale after the second QuiltCon, or second QuiltCon. I was looking for a new machine, and a few of my friends said, this one, I'm getting this one, and so I bought it, and I really, really love it. I feel like it has a large enough throat space for me to be able to work on a lot of different sized projects, and I can free motion quilt large quilts on it myself. I feel like I can quilt everything up to a queen, and the only reason I don't quilt a queen is because I just don't want to. It's just such a huge quilt. I'll send queen size quilts out to my friend Christy Ryan, who quilts really beautiful stuff.
Another one of our viewers has asked what you're going to do with the big panel once you finished it.
I'll show you. We're not going to just do a block today. We're going to make a whole quilt. That was really crazy.
Well, we're actually not going to make it all right now for you because you would be here for a little bit.
We'd be here
too
for a
long.
little while, but we'll piece the whole top,
But we'll do
so
that.
you can see just how easy it is. All right. So now we have a whole block, and if we can have Ariga just press that one again. So what we've already prepared is I've already cut the sashing and actually attached it in other sections, but the instructions have you cut sashing the length of the blocks, and so you can see the sashing strip has already been attached here. And you attach the sashing to the top of one block, and if you want sashing on the outside borders, you would attach it to the other sides as well, like on that side, and then I'll attach a block and attach another layer of sashing. You would do this twice, and then there's long sashing layers that you would put right down the middle and on each end. Sashing is really great, especially on the border, because it helps keep all your seams from the corners here safely secured. But since we're not making this a full quilt right now, and because sashing is just a really long seam and kind of boring to show in person, we're not going to do that to you right now. But it's great to do if you are working on your quilt. So for the full quilt, I like to think about directionality, and so I've basically just lined up the directions of this large print so that they all go one way. You don't have to do this at all, but I'm going to. So that means I'm going to rotate this block this way, and so now you can see this print is going this way, and so is this one, and on the other blocks that we have already made, they're going that way too. And so you're just going to make sure it's lined up with the edge that's sashed, line them right sides together, and then I like to pin just to make sure that I'm not kind of sliding this piece all over the place. And I like to pin at the corners and at the places where my seams intersect, since there's a little bit more bulk there. What are you doing?
I was just making sure about something. Don't worry about it. Sorry.
It always makes me a little nervous when Elle comes to check on something. All right, so now I have my pieces pinned together, and you'll notice because of that sashing strip, the bottom of the one in the back is just a little bit longer than the one in the front. That's okay, that's normal. And now we're going to sew a very long seam. Oof.
Are you ready for it?
I'm ready for it. My bobbin's full. It's good. Any other questions, Yael? Any other candy discussions?
Yes. Do you use a walking foot to piece?
I don't. You can, but I don't. The feed dogs on this machine are really good on the bottom, and then I feel like I just kind of got it on the top. But on my previous machine, I did use a walking foot, but I feel like this machine is just really great, and I don't really need to. Also, I misplaced my walking foot the other day. I don't know where I put it. I just moved, well, I can't really say just moved because I moved like 6 months ago, but my sewing space is kind of like, and I have no idea where I put my walking foot. I'm sure I put it someplace safe, but I don't know where that safe place is right now. So it'd be really great to find it, but I don't know where that is right now.
Someone else asked what size quilt we're making. It's gonna end up being, I guess if you finished it how you're supposed to finish it, based on the pattern, 68 by 68.
67 by 67, but since the sashing is a 2.5 inch strip, that means that it's going to be 63 inches square. Or 64.
On the website it says 68.
On the pattern I printed out, it says 67. So there's like an inch difference, but okay, so now, okay, we have this 2 block section, and guess what? There's another 2 block section. It's already done. Woohoo! And you'll notice I put the long piece of sashing already on this side, and so again I'm just going to so you can put them in any direction you want, but in this pattern there is a light colored center and then a dark colored center, and there's another dark colored center and a light colored center. So we are going to make them go kitty corner, right? Kitty corner? Yeah. And that way it'll keep kind of a nice balance in the quilt. So if we set this one down, and we're going to put this one this way, and we're going to pin. Nope, I got it. Okay.
Linda has asked if we use wide backing or if you prefer to piece your back.
We love wide backing. Plus we offer a huge variety in different styles of wide backs, everything from very modern with Elizabeth Hartman and Carolyn Friedlander and Angela Walters, to like very traditional like whisper prints, and it's just so, I feel like for me a wide back is just the easiest way to make sure that I finish a project. Because sometimes if it comes down to like, do I feel like piecing a back, those long seams are sometimes enough to make me be like, oh sure, I'll do that like in 6 months. And then I just put it into my nice pile of things to do later, or not ever.
How many things do you have in your pile? Currently?
Probably like 20. I don't
20?
know. Yeah, it's just like a good number. I don't know, it's a guess. Some of them are just blocks that I like started and was like, oh, I'm gonna make a whole quilt out of this. Some of them I've made like whole quilt tops. There's 3 solid quilt tops that I have just sitting there that I'm like, oh, I really should quilt this. And one of them has been there for a good like good 5 years, like almost as long as I've been quilting.
Anybody else listening have the same issue as Elizabeth?
Everyone has it. Every quilter has work in progress issues. It's okay though.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. And it means that you get to decide. Like, my favorite thing about quilting is that you don't have to finish it all at once, and it lets you get frustrated with the project and walk away, and you can come back in, you know, 6 months to a year or 2 years or 20 years, and the technique has not changed. Like, you just need to remember how to sew, and you can finish that project. Yeah, that's why I like it. Okay, so now I have it pinned, and I'm going to sew this really long seam. This is surprisingly hard to do on a standing table because the weight of the project keeps pulling back this way, so I keep trying to kind of fight it. All right, yeah, any other questions? What can we do? What can we chat about while we sew this really long seam?
Oh yeah, it's a very long seam. I can think of a question in a couple seconds. What's your least favorite and most favorite part about getting ready for Quilt Market?
My most favorite part are the binders. I've talked about this on social media in the past, but I sure love the binders. I put them together for our entire team. They have the agendas. They put their flight and hotel confirmations in there. We put images of what every booth is going to look like. We put packing lists and tool lists. So I really like that part. My least favorite part is probably sorting through the electrical cables from the year before, which sounds kind of silly, except when you consider we have this really large booth, so we send like a ton of extension cords, and at the end of the show, everyone's like, we just gotta go home. We only have a little bit to tear down, so they all get thrown in one bucket. And so it's kind of like unraveling, like when you get old necklaces that are all just like thrown together and they get tied up in knots and stuff. It's just like that. And we keep them kind of outside. It's not outside, but you know, where it's warmer, it's not air conditioned where we're working, so.
Did you learn to quilt from your mother or grandmother, and what got you into quilting? So two separate questions. Same sort of thing.
I was always interested in quilting. When I was growing up, my aunt had made some quilt blocks and gave them to my mom, and she had them hanging in the closet on like pant hangers. They were just hanging there, not finished or anything. And I told my mom, I think I want to do that. And she said, no, you don't. That's hard. Don't do that. It's not fun. So my mom really didn't enjoy when she took quilting classes. She likes to crochet. And then one time, Pearl Soho did a mini quilt series, and each month of the year they posted a mini quilt, and I thought, well, I could do a mini quilt, and then I thought, maybe I'll just make a queen size quilt. So I just went for it. I used the internet and I used blogs, and I just started sewing. Just kind of jumped in.
Did you make any like major mistakes?
Oh yeah.
What was the biggest one?
The biggest one was probably that I didn't think a 1/4 inch seam allowance was that important. Riga's talking about the time that I like rotary cut my finger. That was not my biggest mistake. That was just like a thing that happened. Also, it's a really good story, and I have like a nice scar. Okay. But on my first quilt, I didn't know that a 1/4 inch seam allowance was that important, and so I just sewed with like less than 1/8 at some point, and so a lot of the seams.
Okay, you're back.
All right. I did rotary cut my finger once, and it's made me much more careful-ish about using my rotary cutter. Yeah, this is a story. My mom broke her ankle, and then I cut open my finger, and we were a pair that week. All right, so we are done. We've finished that long seam, and we're gonna do the whole like grand opening.
I'm gonna
look at this. I'm gonna have her move this back, and Riga and I are gonna hold this forward. And then you can see.
Well, I don't know that I can get back that far, Elizabeth.
Keep going, keep going.
But you guys can get the idea.
Oh,
Let's not knock over the lights, Elizabeth. We didn't plan this, you can tell, right?
Well, we wanted to be able to show you the whole thing, but it's a pretty large quilt, so we needed to move something.
Can you lift up your hand a little bit? Thank you.
And so just like that, in like, you know, a couple hours, you could have this giant quilt already made and ready to go. And it's really wonderful.
You kind of match.
I knew what color I was going to work with today. I picked my wardrobe to complement it.
So yeah, guys, this is a free pattern on our website called
Churn
Dash. It's using Color Dash. You can download it, and it's very, very quick and pretty simple. So,
And if you make one, tag us so we can see it.
Yeah, do that. Anyways, have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in.